Start it off. Here we are. It's a Friday
All
night.
right, let's fucking go. It is fucking Friday night. Welcome to another edition of the one, the only, the podcast that just transcends them all. When you get that little feeling in your nutsack, when you get that twinkle in your eye, when you wake up in the middle of the night, you say, what the fuck is happening to me? I feel good right now. That's because the Spirit Hunters Underground is in your ass.
Wait, time out. Why did you go nutsack and like play with your chin?
You see this? Look at this. It looks like extra skin like a nutsack. See that? See that? Womp.
So, guys, this is what would happen if Caliph took the reins of this podcast.
So it's a reason why I never should. So, Matt, why don't you show them how it's actually done?
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Spirit Hunters Underground podcast. I am your host, as always, Matthew Joseph Neil Lytle, with my brave, beautiful, bald, triple B, Christopher Caliph. What's going on, my brother?
Sup, Pam? It's another week, another another opportunity for us to have a couple sips, talk some ghosty shit, talk some paranormal stuff. And I'm actually excited tonight, man. I'm feeling it.
I feel good. You know, Caliph and I usually film these podcasts on like weekdays when we have work in the morning or something. And, you know, we might partake in a cocktail or whatever, but tonight's Friday. Tonight, we go back to Booze and Bros type podcasting.
Oh, that's dangerous, my guy.
If you guys haven't seen Booze and Bros, we do have an episode up that we filmed last year about Ghost Loop. Now we are the Spirit Hunters Underground.
Anyway, what are you drinking tonight, brother?
I have a triple vodka Tito's. Sponsors.
Tito's, we love you.
Tito's, we love you. And Sprite with a little bit of lime juice because I didn't have an actual lime. What about you?
I can appreciate that. So I've got a half and half. A pretty good mix, good half and half. Tito's vodka. Tito's, we love you.
Tito's? Really?
And the other half.
We're both drinking Tito's?
Yes, sir.
Wow. We didn't even plan that.
The other half, pineapple juice.
Okay. So you went with the juice.
Which, believe it or not, unlike like your screwdriver or like your crayon apple or what the fuck ever else you put in it, pineapple has a really good edge with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just like, you get fucked up before you know it. Before you know it, you're like, okay, I've had some drinks. I'm feeling good.
Well, pineapple has a lot of sugar too. So that could help. You're on like a sugar high plus drunk.
That's dangerous. That's like Fireball. I don't like that. You just ruined it for me. You're a dick.
No, I didn't ruin it for you. Keep drinking. Tonight, we aren't talking about anything of the occult, anything true crime, anything dark and dirty and serious like last week. We talked about the deals with the devil.
Okay, but let's be 100% real. I got to touch base on this real quick. Let's be 100% real. That was uncomfortable as shit, man. I was pretty uncomfortable.
I was leading into us just talking about last week's episode because how do we not?
You know, I've actually gotten about a dozen messages on the Insta over the course of when that dropped and to now when we're filming. Being like, so you got a demon following you, question mark? Like just questions about it because that sound was so guttural and so mean and so just nasty. Like you can't,
Mike?
Yeah, you can't. That's not a sound that you can just be like, oh, that was your dog, or that was Caleb's tummy rumbling, or that was Matt,
that was normal.
You have to look at it for what it really was, and that was something saying, "Hey, dude, I'm fucking here.
Stop talking about me."
Yeah,
that's what I felt. And
how does it always happen? Again, same thing we discussed last week. Two topics, two specifically, right? Our boy RJ and our boy Holmes.
Yeah,
those two topics specifically, something always happens.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think if you go back 2 episodes when we're talking about Holmes and the Ripper, I had stuff happen, like we said last week. And if you haven't watched last week's episode, we talk about deals with the devil, talk about the Robert Johnson story, the Foul story, all of that lore and myth and facts. And the fact that him and I had some crazy shit happen on his end of the podcast.
Which is not normal. Like, let's be up as well. Like, it's not normal. Typically, you with your clairsentience and your empath-like abilities and whatnot, you deal with these things, the stuff, this bad shit when it happens, typically falls in your lap. If you have something like happening in my neck of the woods, particularly in my home, man, that was, I didn't sleep well, brother. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't sleep well at all after that whole thing took place.
Yeah. Well, so I live with my girlfriend and she's not home tonight. She will not be home this weekend. She's visiting family. And I have openly said to whatever's around me, do not do anything or show yourself, make a noise while she's here. When she's not here, feel free to do whatever the hell you want because, tee off, if you will. A lot of times that I've been here by myself, stuff has happened. And a lot of times that you and I podcast while she's not here, stuff happens. So I'm interested to see tonight if anything happens. Granted, we are talking about trigger environments that we have done during Ghost Loop and in other investigations. We'll get into that, but I am interested to see what happens, see if anything. I don't know. I have a good vibe right now. You and I have a cocktail where it's a Friday night that we're filming this. This is great. But I have a feeling it could take a turn again. I don't know, man.
I'm hoping that we don't have to deal with that tonight. I mean, granted, don't get me wrong. It's always like afterwards, after the initial like freak out and fear, it's always cool to say, okay, that happened, right? That sounds good for the sound bites or for the podcast or for even
Right.
PR reasons, right? Whatever.
Right.
When shit's going off, it needs to be when I'm home alone. I got my babies, right? And I've got my babies pretty much all the time. So there's no good time for shit to pop off in my world. So as we talk about trigger environments and we embark on this particular podcast topic, I'm actually going to turn it over to the littlest ghost hunter, the smallest, but the next caliph in line to describe exactly what a trigger environment is. You ready?
Yeah,
All right.
I think.
Mina, hi.
Yeah. Hi.
What's a trigger environment? Let's get right to it.
Yes. So a trigger environment, in my perspective, is something that they use to trigger the ghost to come to where they are so that they can release it back to where it belongs to be. Places like heaven, of course. So
Yeah.
they take all the information that they've gathered and they turn it into what we call a trigger environment. And
That's
then
right.
hopefully the ghost sees what it is and they come to the trigger environment and you can set them free to where they belong to.
Beautiful, baby.
That was beautiful. When she says
All right, you go party
they,
with your friends.
Mina, wait, time out. When you say they, put her back on. Put her back
What's
on.
up?
Put her
Okay.
back on the
Hold on.
mic. So Mina, one more thing. When you say they, who do you mean?
The ghosts.
The spirit hunters.
Yes.
Who builds that trigger, baby? Who builds that trigger environment?
Specifically,
Yeah.
you and Dad,
Hashtag the what?
spirit hunters.
Yeah. Hashtag the
That's
good
my girl.
buzz.
All right. Go party, baby. Go try ice cream.
Thank you,
Have a
Mina.
good night.
Wait, can
Ladies
I
and
get
gentlemen.
the candies?
There you go, candies, baby. You're good to go. You just told everybody in the world what a trigger environment was. I'm proud of you.
Wait, what is your thing called?
Spirit Hunters Underground Podcast. You should know that.
Can I watch it?
Yeah.
Yes. Spirit ground.
Matthew, my child doesn't even realize she can watch our podcast. How many people are not watching what we do?
Ladies and gentlemen, Mina Caliph.
The Caliph, the future.
The Mina Caliph. That's right.
I'm the past. Matt is the present. Mina is the future.
I am not a Caliph.
I was not.
I don't know. You kind of are my Caliph. Like you're my other half. Heterosexual life mates? Question mark.
Depends on the weekend.
All right, so Matthew, let's get into it. Right
Let's
now.
get into
have
it.
We're talking about trigger environments and whatnot. Thank you, Mina, for coming in and totally stealing the podcast. She's going to be the only reason this gets any traction.
Yeah.
But like on that same vein, on that same note, man, we've been doing this for so long that I think it's time that we spend a little bit of time discussing trigger environments and what those mean, what they do, and why specifically we're the ones that do them.
That's a really good question. First off, I want to get, since we're talking about trigger environments, trigger objects are the objects, environments, you blow those up. If you guys
Right.
have not seen Ghost Loop, I have no idea why you're watching this podcast. So go watch Ghost Loop on Discovery Plus, YouTube TV, Amazon. It's on everything. And then come back. I want to talk about Ghost Loop and the trigger environments there, because obviously we had a fantastic budget. So we were able to literally do whatever we wanted to these trigger environments without spending any money, because it was the production house's money.
We were able to, I mean, we put together some stuff, moonshine stills, a muckleshoot fucking hut.
That was insane.
I mean, the fact that we did a dual trigger environment, episode 4, right?
That's it, and that's the one I wanted to talk about. Here, let me talk about my opinion. I want to get yours, because obviously episode 4 and that trigger environment, especially the one that was outside, meant a lot to you. But first, the indoor trigger environment we did, and guys, this was the first episode we filmed. Episode 1 in Houston was not the first one we filmed. We actually filmed episode 4 first. So this was Caliph and I and the Spirit Hunters' first time really like digging into what the trigger environments are, but to have the budget like we talked about, and to actually do what we wanted to do. We built a 1920s nursery because we believe that the haunting was a woman in white who was trapped because she was searching for her child, her stillborn child. And she ended up being, I don't want to use the word evil, but angry, vicious. Well, that's what the homeowners would tell us.
What would you, so if you were a spirit, right?
Pissed. I already know what you're going to ask. I would be angry.
But for the audience at home, you know, if you're a spirit and you lose your kid, you wake up in the afterlife, and the one thing you want is to find your child, and you can't. And years turn into decades. Decades turn into fucking centuries.
Literally.
You're gonna lose your goddamn mind.
Yeah.
Like, and that was the thing that really we had to come to terms with in that episode, man, is that, you know, at first it's like, okay, we're dealing with something fucking evil here. Something is seriously evil. It's not okay. But then realizing, no, you're dealing with somebody who's dealt with loss for so long that it's made them something worse than what they were.
100% agree. 100% agree. I'm glad we figured that out, because the homeowner, Teresa, was telling us that it was scary. It was scaring her grandkids. It could have been evil. And luckily we got to the bottom of it. That's why we made this nursery, 1920s nursery. And while we were doing our trigger environment investigation, we would do a preliminary investigation. Then the next night or the next day, we'd build a trigger environment. Yeah, it only took a day. And then we would do a trigger environment investigation.
Well, let's be real. That day wasn't like 3 hours of work, bro. That day was
it's a whole day.
Oh, goddamn day.
It's a whole day. Yeah. But we have to get it ready, right? Because we're on a schedule. We're shooting a TV show. And luckily we had help with some crew. And holy shit. I mean, we had equipment popping. We had equipment smoking. I've never seen anything like that. It blew my mind, the evidence we got in this trigger environment nursery. And from that first episode, doing what we did, and especially as a team, I knew that these trigger environments were legit, especially when you can do exactly what you want to do, when you have the budget to do it. And if it wasn't for that, we would not have, I don't think we would have figured out the haunting like we did. What do you think?
I wasn't the biggest believer. Like, so trigger environments, trigger objects, I've always kind of been half in, half out with. Somebody that loves something that much that really that's like they're going to attach themselves to a literal object. But we started talking about trigger environments as conduits, these fucking giant superconductors, if you will, to draw in paranormal activity, to be able to bring that spirit there, to be able to cross them over. I couldn't honestly say that filming in Florida first, with that being our first real attempt at a mega, paranormal superconductor, holy shit, did it work? Just the sheer like beacon factor that when I was watching that high line of the outside, and I'm like, something's here. It was drawn there by that trigger environment, that superconductor, that giant reminder of what it is they had lost or what it is they were longing for. So,
or maybe she thought maybe she could find her child in that environment.
And that's the thing, is maybe she did. However, it really brought to the idea that, okay, there's something to these trigger environments to recreate a scene that can then empower, one, but two, remind. It's almost like it gave her the clarity of mind to remember, right?
Yeah.
To remember who she was before all that time and that longing and that pain taken over. It gave her that ability to look back and say, okay, I was a mother. I did lose my child. This is where I rest now. This is my graveyard. So
Well,
it just
I want to say, because you just said graveyard. For those of you who don't know, episode 4, not only did we have that 1920s nursery, we also went outside where the stillborn baby graveyard, unmarked graveyard, it was a ditch. We dug holes, an adult size hole and a child size hole, and made proper graves as a trigger environment. And that's what Caliph is getting at. Which so continue. I would just wanted to make sure that they could visualize what you're talking about.
But that was my real true eye opener to what these things were, right? It was like, okay, well, if there's one way to garner the attention of a spirit, whether it be something good, something bad, or something neutral, these trigger environments were the way. These are literal beacons of fucking light, like lighthouses.
Yeah.
To these entities, to these spirits.
Yeah.
There's no way, like they see them and they come to them. It's not like one of those things where it's like, oh, I see that light, I'm not going to come to it. Do.
It's an option.
It's like, yeah, it's like they see that, they're like, there's home.
Yeah,
that's where I need to be.
They're like just drawn to it.
Yep.
And that's why we do it. That's that's the perfect example. They are drawn to the trigger environment. Trigger objects, like you're about it. Same here. I believe it. You know, if your child spirit, bring some toys, cool. But if you completely change an environment into what that spirit is used to, what it's drawn to, what it saw when it was alive as a human being, flesh and bone, like you and I, how does that not work? And like you said, you and I had, it blew my mind how much more evidence we caught on trigger night compared to preliminary in every single episode.
Right.
In every episode, in all 8 episodes we had.
I think back about one of the last episodes when we were looking at Joseph Brandon.
Yep.
Specifically, Joseph Brandon.
Yep. What episode was that?
That was episode 7. And you and I were talking
in Seattle.
We're going about this the wrong way, bro. That was the Muckleshoot.
Muckleshoot up in the Washington State area.
Yep.
It was Kendall's house, her backyard. We built a whole Muckleshoot camp.
But we were talking, you and I were like, maybe we're about this the wrong way. Maybe this cat needs forgiveness.
Because what did he do? What did Joseph, the spirit we were hunting?
He slaughtered countless Muckleshoot Indians for killing his family first.
Slaughtered them. Like,
he would be a serial killer today.
Yeah.
But in that presence of that Muckleshoot camp, him being drawn there, seeing what he had done, seeing what he'd been a part of, what he want. You want to be forgiven. And it's crazy because again, that goes to my sensory, my clairsentient ability is I felt that. It was 20 minutes you, me, and Chris were out there, and something told me like he is just telling me, hey dude, please stop talking shit. Please stop going about it this way. All I want to do is ask for forgiveness to move on. And it was odd because when I looked at you, because you were more of I feel like you were the guy he was attracted to because you're more the aggressor. And I think if he could get to you, let me tell you a secret.
You would tell your whole team.
Let me tell you a secret. When you watch that episode and you see that scene between you and I, this is a little ghost loop secret for those who have super fans and whatnot.
A little loop secret.
A little loop secret. When I talk about Joseph Brandon in that moment, about needing forgiveness, about wanting forgiveness, I wasn't just talking about Joseph Brandon. I was speaking for myself. The reason why I knew these things and I felt these things are because of the same things that I was hoping for myself. So Joseph and I, in that moment, we shared that moment. You think about how that ghost loop broke. No amen on a ghost box. A fucking fire went out.
Yeah, I remember that.
Fire of anger. Out. He went home. He went home to be the person he loved. He finally got to rest. And that's the thing people don't understand with trigger environments is that it's not just a conduit to the paranormal or super conduct to the paranormal. There's so much emotional shit at stake in these trigger environments. Like, for example, Matt, we've talked about a couple of these ones. Let's talk about Bama. That episode, that hunt, that moment will forever live in each one of us that were part of them.
Yeah. We were in Bama. That was a moonshine distillery, if you will, from the early 1900s, right? Or was it late 1800s? It was early 1900s.
No, it was late 18s.
It was, okay.
Back when they were using radiators and shit like that to be able to produce the moonshine, where it was like, okay, well, one bad batch will literally kill you.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And let's think about the people who understand about these trigger environments. If we wanted to make moonshine in that Bama distillery, we could have. That's how great Michelle was. Like, that's how fucking authentic she was.
Michelle was our art director. She's the one who helped us with the visual of these trigger environments. I mean, she's the professional builder and production designer. The haunting was two cousins that were in their 20s, literally getting into what they thought was going to be a fist fight because they were rival moonshine sellers back in the day, illegal moonshine back in Bama. And they were like, fuck you. No, fuck you. All right, let's fight about it. One pulled out a knife and ended up
Cicero got fucked up.
Yeah, Cicero got stabbed really bad. It wasn't just a stabbing, it was a slicing and dicing.
Bro, that was a disembowel.
And it's kind of crazy now that I'm thinking about it even harder, now that we don't have the distraction of a TV show and the other teammates. What if something persuaded the other cousin to kill Cicero like that?
It's possible. And the reason why I thought that, like, if I'm going to be honest with you, the reason why I have that thought, and I've had that thought for a couple of years now, there's a point where Sean walks into the trigger environment and changes the whole fucking energy of everything, right? Changes the entirety of the energy. And you just look with this half-cocked fucking grin being like, he don't like you.
Well, so it's funny that you mention that because I do. That's what I want to talk about this. I was in there by myself. I was put in there by myself to help these spirits and cross them over. Well, it wasn't an accident that I talked shit. It wasn't because I didn't know what I was doing, like the show says, like my other teammates say. I knew what I was doing. But I didn't really expect to be channeled, basically possessed by whatever the fuck. I remember like flashes. It was like flashes in the trigger environment after I like stabbed the knife in the table. And I remember like the camera guys were kind of there. And then I remember Sean coming up, but it wasn't like I remember him walking up. I just remember him being there. And then that when I saw that scene where the spirit box said whatever it said, and I looked at Sean and I go, doesn't like you. Caleb, you and I watched this episode together. Are those eyes my eyes?
No, because despite how you might have felt about that particular person, the look you gave him was like death.
I want to kill him.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to grab the knife off the table and slice and dice him. And it wasn't like Matt Lytle wanting to kill Sean Austin. It was something was in me that did not like Sean being there. I don't know what it was. I can't remember if this was before or after you and Sean had that argument. It was before. So imagine this is in me. I have to go fucking walk off and scream into the woods. And then I turn around and I hear Chris Starr basically crying. I hear you and Sean yelling at each other. It's like the energy. I mean, you guys listening to this and watching this, like you obviously have some sort of idea about the paranormal, about the energy that this realm can give off. Holy crap. Like our crew for our show had no idea what was going on. Like they were like, what did I sign up for? Especially after this episode. So that trigger environment clearly triggered more than the spirits. It triggered something to channel through me and to basically say, everybody go the fuck away, or I'm going to take Matt's soul.
But isn't that the
And
point? But I mean, think about that. If you think about what the point of the trigger environment is, holy shit, did he do his job?
yeah, well, making these trigger environments, guys, let's not like fake anything, or let's not, whatever. We want the world to crumble when we make these trigger environments. We want to catch the best paranormal evidence. That is the point of making these trigger environments. We go to these houses. That's a reason why, okay, it's a haunted house. You're having problems. Well, great. We're going to give that the most energy, the most whatever word you want to use, and fucking pump it up so we can get the most evidence we can, and then send that bitch off.
And that's, I mean, that was the point. And that, I mean, Bama in a nutshell is really what showed what those fuckers were capable of. You know, don't get me wrong. You, like when we were in Houston and you pulled the gun up and all that shit.
Yeah.
Like,
that was cool.
Thing, like you were able to find ways in those trigger environments to make shit happen.
Yeah.
The train car, same way.
For me, brother, it was like, so I used to be an actor. I had an agent and everything. And being in those trigger environments as an investigator, you're on stage. You know what I mean? In theater, you're on stage, you're a character. Because the more you're in character and you can relate to the spirits, and now you're in their world, the more evidence you're going to catch. That's why I was taking that knife and throwing it around. That's why in Houston, I told Chris, put a gun to my head. That's exactly what the female spirit did to the male spirit.
But you look at the trigger environments we did, right? You look at, Bama, you look at Washington. Hell, you can go to the B&B, which was fucking incredible.
Oh.
Or you can go down to that place in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
That was
the tavern. Bar. The tavern.
But there's one trigger environment I never got to see. There's one I never got to be a part of.
Episode 8.
Tell me about the demon's lair that took place in episode 8.
We call it the demon mine. Because remember,
I was in the hospital. Let's be real. I was in the fucking hospital. And as much people will be like, oh no, he probably didn't go to the hospital.
Yeah, he did.
No, my ass was at the hospital.
Chris was right there. Do you still have the bill? Do you still have the bill?
I do.
Yeah. No, that was because obviously, like south of Salt Lake City, Utah, all of Utah is very big in coal mining.
South Jordan,
gold mining, yeah, and that's what I mean. The spirits there, as you guys watch the episode, we believe there was some sort of energy when it relates to the coal mining, or was it gold mining?
Coal mining.
It was coal mining. Coal mining. Both, right? But obviously, it was a extremely evil haunt, if not demonic. That's why we made it hell, coal mining hell, and we added the blood and the chains and all that stuff. Oh my god! And I will say the difference between this trigger environment and all the other ones, that place was so putrid of this demonic, evil, just vibe. We didn't even need a trigger environment. I mean, you saw in the preliminary, like it was that entity was coming out, speaking to us, not afraid to hurt us.
Zero shit.
It gave us a warning that something was going to happen to who? Oh yeah, that's right, you. And it did. But putting a trigger environment in that house, in my opinion, now that I look at it, especially 3 years later, was dangerous.
Well, you're taking a supercharged environment, an environment already that has no boundaries. And then you're going to fucking throw on top of it. Here's this huge fucking candle on top of this giant fucking pile of TNT and gasoline. Let's see what happens.
Right.
And those moments, I mean, that's what we're made to do, bro. Like I felt that episode, and I won't even fucking try to deny it. But that's why we do what we do. Whether we fall and come back, or we fall and we walk away, it doesn't matter, because we push that shit to the limit. I pushed that shit to almost costing me everything, including up into my life. And for Ty, I was ready to give it. You of all people, you of all fucking people know that I would not, if a demon walked to me and said, I will leave this boy alone, but I'm taking you straight to hell, you know what that is. Let's go. I've fucking done it.
Yeah.
So if my coming undone and my getting my ass whooped helped him, I won. When we step into these trigger environments, it's no different than a fighter stepping into the octagon.
Right.
You don't know you're going to come out there with a W or you get your ass whooped. You don't know. But you still walk in there with the same goddamn steadfast attitude and the confidence you have to be able to say, okay, I'm walking in this environment with you, said spirit, demon, whatever, and come whatever may.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's a good way to close out just us talking about Ghost Loop in the environments. And guys, obviously leave in the comments if you want to know, what else we went with. I mean, episode 5, like Caleb brought up, we were up in an attic tied to beds. Caleb, that was a very, 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 very rough night for you.
I mean, I lived that before we went there. That was part of my life that nobody knew about to that point.
Last call at Spirit Hunters Underground.
Yes,
Can't even talk.
I know shit. I'm like, if I stand up right now, I'm going to die.
Friday night.
So with that, I want to hear in the comments from you guys, what would be a case that would have the best ability to build a trigger environment? I'd like to see that in the comments. With that being said, Matt, what I ask you here at last calls. Yeah, I already fucked up. Clearly. Yep. Last call here at Spirit Hunters Underground. What would be your ideal case to build a trigger environment?
I got 2. Can I do 2?
I think 2 is great.
Robert Johnson.
Who's playing the blues? Who's playing the blues in the bio, bro? Who's playing it at the crossroads?
I think you can have some options. I think what we would do is we would build a stage. We would put Robert Johnson's guitars. We'd put photos of him, and we would have somebody that either knew Robert or somebody's mom who knew Robert or father who knew Robert, or we'd get somebody that is a famous musician, somebody like a Post Malone, to play some Robert Johnson songs down there.
Oh, damn.
And my second one is here right down the road for me, and that would be the Sharon Tate murder house. I know it would be very brutal and very sensitive, but I think all of their spirits are still there. The Sharon Tate murders, if you don't know about them, look them up on Google. But I think if you did that and wrote the word pig with blood on the door and stuff, I really think that not only would you get a lot of activity from the victims there, and we would really try to help them move on, but I think you would get activity from Manson, potentially his followers who did the murders, which would be great paranormal evidence. It would be very dangerous. But again, another thing about these trigger environments it's dangerous building these, because it's like playing with a Ouija board times 10. Like I said, episode 8 for Ghost Loop, we should not have built a trigger environment there. That was a very dangerous thing to do. And I think that would be for the Sharon Tate murder house. But I think in order to have those victims move on, I think building a superconductor for them to come back and relive what they did and be open, they're vulnerable to it, but to be like, hey, we built this because we're here for you. We're here to move you on. That is the point of building this, not to provoke you or anything.
Very selfless way to look at it.
Right.
That's a very selfless way to look at it.
So what about you?
Man, I could list off 15 cases off the top of my head that would just make good TV, right? But if I look at it personally, and like if I was going to build these superconductors for cases that mattered to me, one, Green River, that first bodied up 4 victims on the banks of the Green River.
What would you do?
I would have to put dummies out there to represent where the bodies were and where they laid, to look fairly similar to what was happening, to make sure that everything around the area of the truck that they have, all of that stuff was there.
Damn.
To make sure that you have an exact recreate of when these bodies were being dumped, because they were already dead when Ridgway dumped them. So there's that. That is what it is. However, you look at the realm of the things that surround us and like what would make a good trigger environment, what wouldn't, so forth, so on. And I think DeFeo would be my number 2.
Really?
There's still so many question marks there, like how that family could have been shot and nobody ran, how everybody was wrestling with the Bible in their arms, so forth, so on. There's a lot of questions there that I think Amityville, the original murders, the DeFeo murders, would be probably the pinnacle of anything trigger environment we could create.
Those are 2 very good ones. Those are 2 great ones. Yeah. I mean, that's great. So to close this off, I just want to say trigger environment. I'm glad you and I fell into this, and obviously we had a team that did it as well, but now that's you and I. It's what we do. If we're able to do that in our hunts, we do.
Right.
It's not just walk in, build something like you. I mean, there's a lot to it, but that's our number 1 thing. We're trigger environment experts. We know exactly what to do, why we're doing it, how we're doing it,
what it means and what it impacts. We know
exactly.
we know what we're going up against, and we know what we're putting on the line. Right.
Yeah.
When we build these superconductors, we know what's going to draw somebody in. We know those high stake emotional moments and those places where it's like, okay, this is where we have to reach. This is where we have to hit. We have to hit this level. You know, you look at like Back to the Future, right? You have to 88 fucking miles per hour and so many gigawatts. Like we know we know what that looks like in the realm of the trigger environment.
Yeah.
So we know what it's going to take for these guys to have to come out. We know what it's going to take to be able to cross them over, but we also know the ass whipping we're going to endure between A and B.
Well said. I think that should end it, man.
All right. Well, with that being said, thank you for tuning in again to Booze and Bros, or what the fuck this is called. I'm drunk. So with that being said, next time you see me, I might have a beard, might have a goatee, I have a mustache. I don't know. I have a boner. Who fucking knows? At the end of the fucking day, I love Matt Lytle. I love me. Thank you for tuning in. Eat a dick.
Like I said, this is why I handle that stuff and he doesn't. Guys, we'll see you next time on the Spirit Hunters Underground. Thank you for joining today on this beautiful weekend. And to be honest with you, I am also drunk. But I'm gonna call him drunk right now. Guys, we'll see you next week.
Just remember one thing. Hey, fucker. One thing. Bye, everyone. One thing. Danger zone, bitch.
Wait, did you just pull a Top Gun?
Yep.
Yeah, let's go. Yes, I love it. All right, we'll see you next week, y'all.